So today's episode is one that we've been really excited about because it sits right at the intersection of food, wellness, and something we don't talk about enough, which is how food actually makes us feel. So we're joined by Chef Johanna Hellriegel, an Italian-born chef who grew up in a Michelin-starred kitchen and has taken a completely different approach to food, rooted in simplicity, quality ingredients, and the idea that food should nourish both your body and your life. And one of the things that really stood out for us is the focus that she has on creating a dining experience that completely eliminates plastic, something most of us aren't even thinking about when it comes to the food that we eat in restaurants.
So what we also love about Johanna is not only is her restaurant completely trying to minimize as much plastic as possible, there's zero single-use plastic, and hopefully it's not the last restaurant out there that does this, but she's talking not just about healthy eating in the way that we usually hear it. She's talking about food as connection, food as energy, and really rethinking what it means to eat well, whether you're at home or in a restaurant. So we get into what most restaurants are getting wrong, but the biggest misconceptions about food and simple changes you can make right now that actually impact how your family feels day to day. This is one of those conversations that might completely change the way you look at your plate, right? Johanna, you built a restaurant that avoids plastic. Why is that so important? And what are we missing about plastic in our food?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I'm super passionate about the conversation of plastic in the restaurant industry because I think a large portion of the conversation has been around takeout containers and, plastic straws and what we're really seeing on the consumer side. And there's large problems with that, right? And we really have to think about it from that health and sustainability perspective of how much pollution we're creating when it comes to plastic, just for, a couple minutes of use, as well as obviously the health aspect of it, the coffee cups and the linings that are very much filled with plastic, whether it's a PE or a PLA version of it. And so that was a no-brainer for us to really think about not having lined cups of coffee that are certified plastic-free, using only plant fiber containers that have no linings, and really thinking about biodegradable products that we could really make sure are not something that's just like an eco greenwash product that you then, put in a trash, but it needs to be commercially composted. We really thought about how do you take something and not add to a landfill, but have it degrade with time. When you take so much effort in the front of the house, which is what we kind of call the things that we do in the front with the consumer facing things, I realized early on that the conversation has been really lacking when it comes to the back of the house and what's happening behind the kitchen pass. And, the more you really learn about plastic and how it works, heat, fat, acid, and time are pretty much the perfect storm of chemical and plastic migration. And there's also a lot of plastics that are being used that are, for example, polycarbonate, which is a bisphenol. So it comes from BPA. And if it's BPA free, it might be BPS or BPF. And so you're talking about something that really is already well known as a hormone and endocrine disruptor. And then you've got polypropylene and polyethylene. And those are really the three things that you're seeing most in commercial kitchens. And the issue is that if you're preparing food and then you're storing it within those containers, especially if it's hot and acidic or has a lot of high fat, you're really creating a huge issue when it comes to those chemicals as well as those plastics leaching into the food. And so I really started to become very passionate about what we're missing in that conversation and how to really start to look to be solution oriented, to not be, taking the most beautiful farm products and then not thinking through how they're being prepared when it comes to people's health. So that was a huge wake up call for me of what's the standards that we do in industry practices and what really needs to transform and change.
I love that you just believe food should heal you. When I went into your restaurant, I had just finished a fast and I needed to introduce food slowly. And she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll give you a cup of bone broth." And I thought, who is this woman? I love her. She's amazing.
Immediately calls me.
I literally called Emily. I was like, I love this
She's
woman.
coming on the podcast.
She's coming on the podcast. It was incredible because people don't think about the back of the kitchen. And yes, there's more restaurants which are doing amazing work with trying to have better ingredients, but you don't think about the perfect storm there, that it's just sitting there in plastic, when it's being heated up, when it has acid to it, and it's just releasing tons, billions of microplastics into your food.
It's a really hard part of our industry is that, chefs and people in this industry, they want to nourish you, they want to nurture you, they want to take care of you. But the education is really lacking when it comes to how plastic works. I mean, I've heard from people coming out of culinary school, like you're literally taught, all these techniques of how to wrap plastic wrap, around a sheet tray or, use, sous vide techniques. And it's like, have we not thought about the fact that we're just literally cooking food in hot water in a plastic bag and not thought that this might be an issue? And so it's really
love that you're pushing the boundaries on this, not only as like a pioneer in trying to reduce plastic, but also as a woman, as a chef.
Yeah, it's really one of those things that I really believe women are not just part of the solution this time, but we're really going to pioneer the conversation forward, because especially so many moms in this industry, we're taking all these practices at home to really make sure that our kid is safe. Why are we not doing the same in our kitchens? And so it's really important for us to have these conversations because, it's at the highest level. You've got 3 Michelin star restaurants that are using plastic tasting spoons to taste all these hot acidic sauces every single day. And it's just like, oh, I just want to go test your blood for microplastics and see what comes out. Because unfortunately, it's such a silent killer, right? It's a silent thing that is impacting our health. And so people do not regard it as quickly as they regard other things for their health. And, I think there's a great documentary that just came out called The Plastic Detox, which is showing
on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. And it's showing the correlation of our fertility crisis and plastic. And so now that issues that we really are caring about and are becoming huge problems of our time are starting to correlate not just the pollution aspect, but the health aspects of plastic, I think that more and more people are waking up to the conversation. And we need to realize that almost 60% of the meals that are happening right now are outside of the home, which is like more than half of our meals. And if that is the case, what are the containers that we're taking our food from home in, right? What are we cooking in? And then what are we doing at the restaurants that we're eating at, or the takeout places, or the grocery stores that we're buying all these prepackaged foods from? And how much of that to-go lifestyle is literally contributing to, people thinking they're being healthy, right? And actually not actually seeing the best health benefits from these healthy decisions just because of the containers and the cooking practices and everything else that go into it.
Plastic is going to be the new smoking, and that's what we're going to be seeing. And I see it already in so many studies that are coming out that are currently being done. And so I'm excited that it's finally getting the awareness and the attention that it really, truly deserves.
You mentioned some of the things that restaurants are doing wrong, but do you think most restaurants could make this switch if they wanted to?
I do. I think it's, once again, it becomes like a cultural thing. Like if you watch The Bear, right, that TV show.
I love it.
Yes.
Is that how your kitchen is?
Not at all. Not at all. But it's one of those shows, right, that is trying to show you a little bit of like the industry culture. And so if you go back and watch it now, and I have this in your head of plastic, right? All you're going to see is plastic. You're going to see the deli containers that are made of plastic that they're, drinking out of, or they're storing things in. And that show influenced so much that all of a sudden on TikTok, you started seeing like people making cucumber salads and shaking it in this plastic container. Like viral things are happening because of people now seeing these containers being like this cultural thing that restaurants do, that they drink their hot coffee of and their sodas and everything else. And so when you have something like that happening, right, that's part of like the culture of a restaurant, you really have to find a way to shift that culture and have those educational moments, but also like, what's the other option? Like, what's the alternative? How do you really show people this versus that? And so it's going to be a huge push. And, I just was nominated for a James Beard a couple months ago. And I think that for me, it's like, how do I use that as not just like an accolade, but like this platform to be like, okay, here is what I'm doing. I'm not gatekeeping. I'm willing to share all the information. And like, will you join me in this? Can we coalesce? Can we, build more of a network and momentum of chefs who are really able to make that transformation? And the more we change,
out of ball jars instead of the plastic cups.
We
Well,
need to
and that's the
have a
thing.
symbol on a restaurant being like, yes.
Well,
Like,
it's like, oh, the mason jars, like they're going to break. And it's like, I've had mason jars in my kitchen since day one. And I don't think we've really even broken any, if I can think of it. It's a lot harder to do than you think. And, you know, if you're trusting people in kitchens with so many other different tools, why can't you trust them with a mason jar, you know? So I'm with you on that. And then there's so many options to switch with stainless steel as well, really trying to pioneer that question and solution forward.
so you didn't start in food. Like, what pulled you back to the kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the restaurant industry in terms of my chef, like you talked about, dad, but I went to work in democracy building. I studied international affairs, and I worked with actually helping women ascend into leadership roles around the world into political positions. So whether it was in their party or becoming a member of parliament, et cetera. And, you know, the work that I was doing was just so transformative and so beautiful, but I was being exposed to so many different cultures and so many different cuisines. And also as women, you know, people were like taking you into your home. They were cooking a good meal. Like food was part of like the dialogue, and it was always part of the conversation. And so I don't know if it was just like this kind of spiritual way of getting back to like my dad, you know, that I had lost, to pancreas cancer, right? And so somebody who had given his life to being in the restaurant industry and putting everything but his health first maybe made me a little angry about the industry at first. And then coming back to food by watching all these women come together over a meal and how they were nourishing their families, like I was re-inspired by what food could do and what it could do to nourish people, but also like build community. And I think that really pushed me back into kitchens because I kind of became obsessed with how it could just be different.
I love how strategic you were with your restaurant, placing it in DC, near where all of the political things are happening. So you
Lobbyists. Yeah.
right? All the lobbies coming into your restaurant and you getting to talk to them and push a little bit harder. I think your dad would be so proud. And
Well, I mean, I went to GW, and so it's like I've been in DC since then. And it's funny because I've always like, I wish I had gotten to move out of here. And if I opened in LA, if I opened in Austin, if I opened even Colorado, I would be like surrounded by people who just get what I'm doing. And so for a bit, I was also like frustrated, like opening in this city. And then I realized, wow, my restaurant is 4 blocks away from the Capitol, and I'm getting people from all different walks of life. Even though 95% of the members of Congress that come in here are Democratic and mostly female members of Congress, I'm also getting people who come into our restaurant because they love what we're doing with our food and our mission. And even if they're on opposite sides of the aisle, it's just this funny conversation of like, hey, you guys are saying the same thing that you love about my mission and principles, yet you aren't talking to each other. You know, how do you start talking to each other, and how do we start actually moving the needle instead of arguing? Like, let's move the needle for our constituents, you know, for the people who need it most, instead of going tit for tat or not touching something because somebody else does. Like, just making it a little less childish and like really thinking through.
I
Like,
love that you're bringing
goal.
both sides together, you know.
Trying.
No, but you truly are. Like, it shouldn't be a political issue. Health and food should not be a political issue.
Yep.
Plastics, exactly. Eliminating plastics from our food should not be a political issue. And the fact that you create an environment showcasing that where people can break bread together is really symbolic.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I always say, health is a human right, food is a human right. And really, how do we try to make these things the most affordable and accessible as possible, while also understanding, you know, the business of this country, right? And how it operates, and really finding strategic ways of like, okay, you guys can disagree on 99% of the things, but can you agree that local school food, farm to table programs should be something that we should support? And okay, how do we actually get legislation in place to do that? And in today's world, you can side with one side or the other, but the only way to really get things done is if it is a bipartisan effort. And so I think everybody can have anger towards each other, but realize that, like, you know, I was part of a childcare initiative that was fully on the Democratic side, and it went nowhere, right? Because it was just supported by the Democratic Party. And there's some things that have just been pushed by the Republican side and that it will be fought by Democrats. And so it's like, we're not going to get anywhere if we don't play the game and find that common ground and make it a bipartisan effort. Or at least what I say is, like, it shouldn't even be a partisan thing, because these are things that should really just be for everyone, no matter their background. So
what's the first place that you would remove plastic in a home kitchen?
I would definitely look at your like Tupperware and storage. I think switching to glass or stainless steel options are going to be the best option for people. Looking for alternatives to plastic wrap. I grew up in like a plastic wrap home. My mom was like
we all did.
fresh off the boat from Italy. It was like Windex, Tilex, Clorox were like the saviors of chemicals and plastic wrap. I mean, still to this day, my mom will send something back home from my son visiting her, and she like needs to wrap it in plastic wrap, even though there's no reason for it, right? And no matter how many conversations I've had, it doesn't go anywhere. So, like things like that, just really thinking through the alternatives of, do you really need plastic wrap? Can you use parchment? Can you use beeswrap? Can you use like different silicone bags if you really need something? There's just so many great alternatives. Grove Collaborative has done a great job after the Plastic Detox movie came out to kind of help you build some good options for your home. Plastic Pollution Coalition has great resources as well. So, there's just a lot of tools out there to use nowadays to figure out how to replace it.
What's the most overrated food trend?
Well, I just think we've overdone it on the CPG world of things, right? Like,
literally just coming from Expo, I think that was what's so hard. It was that there was just the packaging and the notion that, oh, this is all healthier for you. I was like, it's not. Like, if you're going to eat a packaged snack, there's some better alternatives, but it's still processed food.
Yeah, the trend of just moving everything to CPG and trying to make it like the healthified version of something, I just think we've like overdone it. Like, even going to some grocery stores, it is so overwhelming. I want a chocolate bar. Like, why are there 100 different options? And now I have to read ingredient labels. Let's just pick the 3 best chocolate bars that are doing things the right way. Like, it's just a little bit overwhelming right now in how many items there are in market right now. So
great point. Okay, underrated ingredient.
I'm sorry, but extra virgin olive oil, she's the OG. She's been around forever. I know we're getting into all the different oils and things like that, but
tallows, all those.
What's your olive oil of choice? What's your brand?
Well, I love olive oil from Liguria, which is where my mother is from. I just find it to be quite high in all the polyphenols and everything that you want out of olive oil, but it's just got like a beautiful smooth taste to it, so it doesn't overwhelm. It's made from the Tagasque olives, which is a specific variety, so I'm a little biased on that.
If you had to pick a great olive oil, what are you searching for?
I'm looking for, honestly, their practices, right? Like, what are they doing? If you really want to pick like a small family farm or somebody who's been doing this for a very long time and has really thought through the production, they've had to nourish that soil for so long in order to keep it to be what it is today and withstand all the different changes in climate and everything else. And so that's what I look for, somebody that has history and somebody who's really taking care in like the organic practices to really keep nourishing the soil, as well as obviously the olives that come with it.
What's one thing you would never feed your son?
Goldfish.
Goldfish crackers.
Perfect. We're with you on that one. In good company here. Natasha, to that point, what's one thing you would never feed your children?
Goldfish crackers. I've never given my kids.
Me neither. I've never given.
I actually agree with Mark from Ask the Dentist. I think it's worse than candy, just because the way it just sits into your teeth and the grooves of your teeth and the sides. It's just terrible, and it's also not
there's so many things. It's not just the dyes; it's the flour. It's just like it's all the things, and everybody thinks of it as like this
snack that you can give to your kid,
Yeah. They really did a good job of marketing it, right? Little fishies, and nobody can touch anything close to it to make a healthier option because of the trademark probably on the way that it's shaped. So they've definitely found a way to make it that market staple. And I just feel like that's the number one thing I have always been really clear. And my son knows better. And I love that, because from a young age, I was teaching him about the microbiome and, how food is supposed to taste delicious and it can be healthy for you. But I really use some unique language with him to kind of teach him about more of what happens with the food in your body and So he actually, like, even at ski school, like, they were offering goldfish as one of the snacks. And he was like, no, I'll have the graham cracker, like the Annie's, like, bunny, which are like not something I normally would feed him at home. But the fact that he would,
better alternative, and he knew to go for
he
it.
knew to go for the other one. And I was so, like, impressed because I didn't say that to him. And he's 5 years old, and, like, he just knows better.
He provided. I think that's what's important, is that you can provide the foundation for the child, because you're not always going to be there. He was at ski school. You weren't present there to tell him, oh, go for that option.
Yep.
But you provided the knowledge for him to make the better choice of what was available.
Yeah, even yesterday, I got off a plane, right? And I was tired. And so we went to go have, like, a pho broth at a beautiful place. And he had beautiful noodle soup and great, beautiful collagen broth. And then there was, like, a little frozen yogurt place outside. And it's like, okay, like, my kid wants that, fine. And he saw the gummy bears as a topping, and he saw, and he's had a healthier gummy bear version, right? That's a little bit better, but that's not what they were having. And so at first he looked at it, and then I was like, you know what about the chocolate, like, sprinkles, like, as an example? And just being able to make some of those switches, it allows you to, like, not deprive your kid entirely from, like, having the sweet childhood and whatever it is.
You're not villainizing food. You're just showing them there's better options. They still will have sugar. You're not going to restrict them. You're just giving them, alternatives.
But I was restricted as a kid, right? And I was put in I was in an organic before organic was a thing. All my friends had, the funfetti cupcakes for their birthday parties, the Eggo waffles for breakfast, and then they had, the Gushers and all those different candies. And I could not have them. And so when I got to boarding school, I was like, oh, I can go shopping by myself now. And so you course correct, and you just go this other opposite way. And so I pretty much spent, high school eating pretty much all ultra processed foods, right? And that is just, like, where I agree that doing the educational part of it instead of just saying no
and not
finding, can be so instrumental. Because now I'm back.
The post that you put up last night has been fantastic about this. If you need extra script,
I can't wait to look at it. You're such a great resource for moms. Seriously.
All right, next question, rapid fire. Best lazy healthy meal.
Okay, I love just taking a whole chicken and I just put it in a pot with water and whatever scraps of vegetables I have left over, and then I just, like, cook that broth, and then I get the meat from the chicken, I get the chicken stock, and then, for my son, I'll make, like, pastina, which is like a little baby pastas with a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano and that broth and some of that chicken, and it's just, like, such a good, nourishing, easy thing to make, but, like, all I had to do is take a chicken and throw it in a pot.
I feel like some people might say that sounds a little scary, but it's not.
It's not. I literally, like, one whole pot, one chicken, just throw it in there. If you had that old carrot that was in the drawer, if you had half an onion, like, you just throw it in there. And then, I put, like, a heaping tablespoon of sea salt, and, like, we're good. Cover the pot. Let it go. It's great. Yeah.
Okay. I love this question. If you had to eat one cuisine forever, rapid fire.
I mean, Italian. It's going to be that. It is.
Natasha, I'm curious yours too.
I think it would probably be Italian.
I think it would probably be her restaurant.
Oh, well, that's true too. If I had to go to a restaurant, you know how picky I am, and I don't like going out to restaurants. And
well, you've changed my life in that, because I was a, like, New Yorker who only did takeout my whole life. And now I'm like, I much prefer to eat at home. Granted, I can't
My
cook.
kids get embarrassed when like we do go to a restaurant, and I'm like, what kind of oil are you using? And, you never realize that when they're making the pasta sauce, they cut the olive oil and they use canola oil with it. And
there's a blend. They sell them, like, all the big distributors sell. It's a 95% canola, 5% olive oil blend. So it's already blended together, and that is what they're actually using. And I'm talking about even very fancy restaurants. And
yes, why is that?
Well,
What's the point?
it's let's just say, like, the whole seed oil conversation, it's a very nuanced conversation. I like to talk about it from the fact that it's an industrialized oil, right? And so when I am making such good decisions about using organic regenerative farms, right, and farm to table and local produce, why would I go out of my way to support a monoculture crop that is 93% subsidized by the US government. It's genetically modified, right? And so all of the things that I don't stand for are usually what those oils are. You're not seeing organic expeller pressed, sunflower oil at a restaurant that's high oleic. You're seeing the bottom of the barrel. Like there's even places that have like tanks in the back, like tanks that look like water heaters that the oil goes in and then it comes out. And that's what's being utilized. And it has no origin to it. It has no sourcing information. So my question for my industry is, if we spend so much time on all the other sourcing, why are we not asking the questions about the oils? And so say it what you want. If you look at it, it's a nuanced conversation. There's black seed oil. There's plenty of oils that are coming from seeds that are healthy, right? That have
I think that's where it's nuanced with like the seed
nuance in terms of how people conglomerated this like trend as a seed oil suck conversation.
Thinking like, oh, all sunflower seed oil is bad. I'm like, well, not exactly.
It's not, right? And then they're like, oh, a nut is a seed. And I'm like, oh my God, we have like missed the plot here on what is happening. This is the conversation that people are missing of these monoculture crops. And that's literally stripping our soil. It's literally killing our farmers because it's at some point, soil health is so bad from these monoculture crops that we're really like not thinking about the longevity of our planet. And so that's where I get into it when it comes to the industrialized oils and not using them at my restaurant. Because why, if everything else matters to me, why would that not matter? And then it's how it's being used. Nobody is giving education to chefs of how to use these oils in their kitchens. So on top of the industrial oil I was just saying, they're using it over and over again, or until it's basically the darkest color possible, instead of recognizing how these oils work and how not to overutilize them to the point that they are rancid and oxidized and really contributing to those direct health issues. That's where I feel like we've stopped having nuanced conversations. We've seen everything as black and white, and we're really missing the plot of like teaching my industry of why this versus that. And, how to use things in certain ways. You can't get rid of all plastics, but maybe I could just teach you not to like cool your food in the plastic, right? Like just cook it in the pot, cool it in the pot. And once it's cold, then maybe transfer it into a polyethylene container and not a, polycarbonate container. Like those are just like little tools that if we could just get people to understand the differences and the nuance, like we wouldn't just be fighting all the time of who's right and who's wrong. Because it's hard to argue with just oil being black and then being filtered and then being put back into a fryer,
This is why Natasha brings her own pans and oils to restaurants. And by the way, on vacation with us, I have been there for this.
Okay, so that's very extreme. That's very extreme. That's very interesting. I would love to know what their response has been.
When you put it in a very kind way and in an educational type of manner, and and you present it where it's nothing that they're doing wrong. This is just something that makes me feel more comfortable. And then they ask, well, why do you want to use that? It opens it up to a nice conversation.
I totally agree with you. But you know what? I commend you on it, because the thing is that we always are thinking that people know. And I was just talking about this with my friend, Amy. It's like, we're so in our bubble of what we know that we don't realize that there's so many people still using like the Tide Pods because that's like what they grew up with. Like there's so many people that just aren't being given this information. And a lot of people are still in the thought process that, oh, if it's legal or it's being sold, it must be somewhat safe. And that's where the regulations don't exist. And we do have to go out of our way to have consumer education. And my hope for my industry is that because we are nourishing people, because we love to nurture, because we're in hospitality, that if we start investing in the education, that more people will follow suit. And that's why I do pop-ups with chefs. Like I always say that you have to follow my principles if we're going to do a pop-up together. But first, there might be like a little tense moment about it. But then afterwards, I'll get a text message from somebody being like, hey, chef, I'm now starting to plan my menu. Will you introduce me to like some of your local farms? Because that little pop-up inspired them to think differently about, the U.S. food in the Cisco. And maybe there's other options out there that would yield the better product because they saw people's firsthand response to feeling nourished and feeling really good in the restaurant then also feeling really good the next day. And that's kind of the big testament for me of like the marker of how you're feeling. So yeah, like I think we'll get there.
Consultant on the bear so you can change the practices that everybody sees.
If you know somebody, let me know.
That's right. Any listeners out there, we need to get her to be a consultant on the bear, because they need to be drinking out of ball jars and not out of plastic containers. They have some other issues, but that's,
We'll get into like how you treat staff and, not have a meltdown every 5 seconds later, but at least the plastics.
There's some therapy needed, but other than that, the plastics we can help with.
All right. So if someone walks into your restaurant and leaves feeling different, what do you hope they feel?
I hope they can remember that being healthy is not just what the food is on your plate. It's so much more, right? It's being able to gather in community. It's being able to feel joy, to have beautiful relationships, to be able to relax and decompress. The food on the plate is so important. We take care of that so you don't have to worry here. I want you to really just think about the full circle of life and how you're really taking care of your health in those regards as well. And that's why I think restaurants are so important. And so fundamental to how we can find that time to gather and take care of ourselves. And so if we can just get more of like the health part of the conversation to be right, then I think we can really be those community spaces that can coalesce us back together. I feel like after COVID, there's so much of like the individualism or just like focusing on the I. And I think now more than ever, we need to focus on the we. And that can really happen when you have beautiful gathering spaces that make you feel that safe, like-minded space that you can surround yourself in. So more in-person time.
And maybe Johanna can't say this, but I can. I feel every time I go to a restaurant. When I went to Amma, felt amazing. Felt amazing afterwards. And not just the community part and the fact that she's so incredible, but my body felt great. And I can always tell if I eat at a restaurant or eat takeout, I just feel the next day.
That means so much. It's literally my mission is I want you to feel good the next day. And people ask me, they're like, how do you, I'm like, I know because people come back for breakfast the next day. And I
did too. I went to dinner that night and I went back the next day.
But that's the thing though, right? Like how many restaurants can you say that you're going out to eat the next day to like eat there again? And that's what we're missing is that conversation. And when I look at my industry and there are chefs that are getting cancer, they are dropping dead of heart attacks. They are, burnt out and stressed out. And like my dad, if I can say this and hopefully reach somebody to hear this, like my dad on his deathbed literally said to all of his chefs, go enjoy life more. This isn't everything. Like take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your health. And that message was shared to me when I started getting into the industry from one of those chefs. And it really sat with me. Am I going to be on the same trajectory as my dad? Am I going to be my genetic makeup? Or am I going to realize that 90 to 95% of cancer is lifestyle and environment, and I can choose differently? And so I really want this for my industry because it plays into so many other factors of their life. And we deserve to not just be taking care of everyone else before we take care of ourselves. We deserve to be able to nourish our bodies and our health and in turn take care of others,
Bravo. We admire you and everything you're doing.
And if you loved this episode, send it to a friend who's been trying to eat healthier but feels maybe a little overwhelmed, because this is such a refreshing way to think about food. And as always, we'll link everything Johanna mentioned in the show notes.
Thank you.
This podcast does not constitute medical advice or recommendation. Please consult your doctor.